Trump moving closer to a major war with Iran. What does that mean, Jason?
I think it'll be primarily an air war, the likes of which we haven't seen since the Gulf War. That's what we're looking at right now, because you mentioned over the past 24 hours, the additions of military equipment moving into the region. Over the last 12 hours, really every 12 hours or so, we're doubling what we're sending or what's arriving into the area. So this is extremely significant. All that military hardware.
Every 12 hours, we're doubling it?
What could we expect if theoretically a war broke out with Iran? Check out this great clip over here from the Beck show. There's a lot of good information in this clip. We'll watch it together and then we'll talk about it. But first, hit that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Check this out.
I wanted to bring you in because I've been hearing you talk, every day about watch Iran, watch Iran. You've been saying something is coming. What looks like it may be coming, Trump never bluffs. He makes promises. And he made a promise that you start killing, supporters and people who are out on the street, you're going to have hell to pay. Then it kind of changed to, after they killed 35,000 people, it kind of changed to, well, let's see if we can work a deal out with you. And I believe that this is him just showing the rest of the world, and especially the Middle East, we tried everything we could. And they cannot have nuclear weapons. And we tried and tried and tried, gave it our best effort, and they refused. So now we got to go in. But what does a major war, this is what Axios is reporting, Trump moving closer to a major war with Iran. What does that mean, Jason?
It means a broader regional war is what we're looking at here. I think it'll be primarily an air war, the likes of which we haven't seen since the Gulf War. That's what we're looking at right now, because you mentioned over the past 24 hours, the additions of military equipment moving into the region. Over the last 12 hours, really every 12 hours or so, we're doubling what we're sending or what's arriving into the area. So this is extremely significant. All that military hardware.
Every 12 hours, we're doubling it?
Pretty much. I'm sure that will taper off, but every time I look at this, there's graphics, I'm looking at it, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's twice as what it was before. It's pretty remarkable, the amount of hardware that's moving. But when you look at a broader regional war, you're going to see a lot of conflicting information on here, because this is where the Middle Eastern geopolitics comes in, and it's very, very dirty. So on one hand, you've got the Saudis who do not love the Iranians. The Saudis will be drawn into this, including every other, Gulf monarchy over there. But what they have now is this interesting, I guess, conundrum. The conundrum looks like this. So everyone over there agrees that the Iranians are disruptive. They're causing problems in their own countries. They have broad ambitions to do way, way more to dominate the entire region. But on one hand, the status quo shows that they don't have to compete with Iranian oil right now. And there are significant reserves of oil and gas in Iran. But right now, they don't have to compete with it. They dominate it. Iran's portion of that stockpile is sanctioned, and not a lot of it comes out. So what the Saudis and the rest of them are looking at right now is suddenly a scenario that's very real, especially if this war breaks out, that now they're at a significant disadvantage that they didn't have before. Now they have to compete with Iran, with oil prices, gas prices, everything. So everything is about to change, but all of our military bases that are all over the Middle East, they will be involved in this. We need to start looking at what this looks like in terms of, Iran's about to go, if we are correct that the war is about to happen soon, the world is about to go into Iran is about to go into regime survival mode, which everything that they have planned over the past, since 1979, to maintain control and power, they are now going to put those into effect. What does that mean? That means the Strait of Hormuz, which the Iranians just signaled that just a couple of days ago when the talk started. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz briefly, or portions of it, for a live fire exercise. Now, that was a signal to, we still have that trump card. We will shut down the Strait of Hormuz if our regime is coming under attack. We also know that they have sleeper cells all over the world. We know that they're in South America. We don't know how significant of a threat that is. We don't know if we're prepared for that, but you can better believe that the Iranians will look at all those options once this happens. But this will be primarily a large, massive air campaign to take out the ability for Iran to shoot long-range missiles, to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and to do whatever else they want. It's going to take a while. This is not Venezuela. This will take a while.
So
go ahead.
Here's the thing I know about Trump, though. He doesn't do long, drawn-out war. He's against that. So how is he being advised on this? Because he knows if he gets into a long, drawn-out war, it's going to be horrible for him. Horrible. So what do you think his advisors are saying? Don't worry, Mr. President. What is Raisin Cane saying? Don't worry, Mr. President. We're going to do this. So it's not that.
I don't think that he is saying, don't worry, Mr. President, because there are way too many variables with an attack such as this. And a lot of things are on a lot of options and cards the Iranians have to play will be involved here. That's why I think there's so much hardware moving there. They've been very surprising in how they deal with military or kinetic strikes. They use subterfuge. They attack when people don't expect them to attack. They do things that are just completely unexpected, and that's what's thrown a lot of world leaders kind of off kilter. They don't really know what to expect, so they're very, very, very good at it. So I think anything I'm dreaming up right now or any other expert, it's probably going to be something vastly different than what we're expecting because, again, they are good. We also don't know what their capabilities are. I do think, Glenn, that if this is going to be a major regional war, if the stakes are as high as potentially regime collapse and regime change, which your conversation with the Crown Prince sounds like, if this commences, the ground troops being the Iranian people will come out. There's a very real shot that the regime does come down. I think
but they don't have any weapons. They have no weapons.
Yes.
So unless you get the IRGC, the Islamic Republican Guard, to switch sides, the people are unarmed.
Yeah. I personally think that there's a chance that because the way Iran works, and this is very important for people to understand, the way that Iran works, it's almost like a massive surveillance state. That's what it is, and it's built off the back of the Revolutionary Guard Corps. So if you think of the deep state to the nth degree, surveillance state to the nth degree, that's what they built to protect the regime, and it all runs through the Revolutionary Guard. Well, they have historically been at odds with the regular military. So I do believe there's a high chance that if it gets to that point, then the weapons on the ground in support of the people could be the regular Iranian military. That's very, very possible. But I do think that they will come out in force. And I think that, speaking of weapons that we don't know capabilities of, I think that cyber warfare, if Venezuela is any kind of, I guess, clue to this or hint, I do believe we will see cyber warfare used like never before when this kicks off.
If we demonstrate the kind of prowess that we showed in Venezuela, the world will shake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we somehow or another go in and we can cripple them like we did in Venezuela in ways that nobody can imagine, that makes the United States a power beyond all powers. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because it just, when Bush said it's going to be shock and awe, it was more like shock and yawn to me. I mean, it was like, okay, well, that's what I expected America to do. I expected that. And I remember seeing it going, okay, well, this looks like a really intense war. Do you think this is going to look more like Venezuela in a way that it's just stuff that we just didn't know we had the capability of doing?
Similar, and I like how you use the shock and awe and the Gulf Wars, because during especially the first Gulf War, the thing that we debuted then was precision guided munitions. So Tomahawk cruise missiles. We really showed off our precision weapons, and that was a very similar flashpoint in global defense history. We showed for the first time how accurate our weapons were. The Russians had no idea that they were that accurate. The Chinese had no idea. If this goes to regional war status and as big as what some people are predicting, I think they'll be saying the same things after this happens, is, oh my gosh, we are so far behind.
So the point of what Trump did with Israel in the Middle East was to get us out of this position to where we're always in the Middle East, that the Middle East would take care of itself because you'd have the UAE and you'd have Egypt and you'd have Saudi Arabia and everybody else. Does that alliance hold together if we're going in and destabilizing Iran? I mean, you just said about the Straits of Hormuz, and they also don't want all of that oil, to be freed up and open. Does that hold?
That's the question of the millennias, really, right there. Because if you want to think back through history, we have always been searching for that answer. And it's very positive. The Abraham Accords is very positive to getting them all to work together. But the solution back in the day, right after right during the wars between Saddam Hussein and Iran, was to arm one side, also arm the other side, and have them fight each other, so that nobody else, they weren't thinking about fighting Israel. They weren't considering fighting us. That was their shot then. Now it seems the idea is, well, the only problem is Iran. We'll fix that, and then it'll fix the region. I don't think any of the answers are correct, but I do think the Abraham Accords are probably the biggest, goal and eventual outcome to move towards. But the biggest destabilizer in the entire Middle East right now is Iran. Every single country is in some way in the Middle East are being terrorized by Iran. So I think that they're thinking if they fix that, that'll free up a lot of the region. But then it's just like before. It's going to pivot to the competition between all these these regional powers within the Middle East. Between, we're the big oil guy on the block. No, we're the big oil guy on the block. You're going to have more sectarian issues, I'm sure. Inter-Sunni sectarian issues. Shia, there's a huge Shia population still. A lot of them are very, very loyal to Iran. So a whole nother ball of wax, as it usually is in the Middle East, will open up after this. I think that if they stick to their guns on cooperation through Abraham Accords, I think that they got a shot.
I put this at a very low probability. Do you think there's any chance we have to worry about nukes? I've only got about 30 seconds.
I really don't think so. I don't think that unless something is hidden that we don't know about. But I think that one of their primary targets will be a lot of those nuclear sites, those long-range missile sites. So they're going to knock those out probably first and foremost after the air defense.
So as they said in this video over here, that today Axios is reporting something that most Americans don't fully realize, that the United States may be closer to a major war with Iran than we think. Sources say that if that happens, it would not be a quick strike. It would likely be a weeks-long campaign targeting nuclear sites, missile bases, and key military infrastructure. The U.S. has already been building up forces in that region. We've seen last few weeks aircraft carriers, warships, and advanced fighter jets, a sign that leaders are preparing for a serious scenario if diplomacy winds up fully failing. So what would a war actually look like? Well, as you saw in this video, first it would likely begin with precision airstrikes aimed at Iran's nuclear program and missile capabilities. The goal would not be to invade the country, but to limit its ability to threaten the region and develop nuclear weapons. Second, we would probably see cyber operations, economic pressure, and cooperation with allies, especially Israel, to contain escalation. Now, here's the part that many people struggle to hear: why some analysts argue that this could ultimately be a good thing. For America, the argument is about deterrence. History shows that when regimes pursuing nuclear weapons are stopped, evil regimes, the risk of catastrophic war drops dramatically. Preventing nuclear proliferation has long been a cornerstone of global stability. For the Iranian people, the argument is moral, not military. Many experts note that the conflict is not with the population, but with a regime that has faced repeated internal protests and widespread dissatisfaction at home. We've been watching for weeks. We've seen thousands killed. When pressure weakens authoritarian power, it can create space for change. Not overnight, not easily, but historically it has opened doors for societies to be able to move towards greater freedom. War is never something to celebrate. It's always tragic, always costly. But sometimes history presents moments when confronting danger prevents something far worse. And here's the deeper truth. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of a world where fewer people live in fear. If the moment is handled with wisdom and with restraint, the goal is not victory over a nation, but a future where both Americans and Iranians can live with greater security and hope. Because the ultimate measure of strength is not how wars begin, but whether they lead us closer to a more humane and peaceful world. And that is the future worth striving for. If you like this content overall, that subscribe button over there in the corner. We'd love to stay in touch. Take care.